Hello and welcome back to the Movie Memo Recaps. Today we are going to recap a 2023 movie titled Paradox Effect. Please be advised that there might be spoilers ahead. In the opening scene, an Interpol agent is being taken captive by an Italian Mafia group. At this point, the Mafia wants the agent to give the location of his comrade, who had ventured to deceive them. However, the agent refused to reveal the information, which frustrated the Mafia boss named Silvio, prompting him to cut off the agent's finger while threatening to continue torturing him. Unable to bear the torture any longer, the agent stated that the colleague they were looking for was now in Barapuglia. Silvio, the Mafia head, murdered the agent as soon as he learned this. 1 month later, the setting turns to a widow named Karina, who works extra hours at a vegetable store. Karina is a former addict who successfully overcame her addiction. Shortly after, Karina receives a phone call from a buddy who is also a former addict. Her companion adds that she is being pursued by a dealer for old debts. When Karina hears this, she tells her buddy to wait because she will be there soon, and she quickly leaves her extra job and hurries to the place. Karina arrives to see her buddy afraid, but she tries to calm her down. Shortly after, a dealer named Charles approaches and demands payment for her friend's previous debt. Additionally, Charles notes that the interest on the debt has increased dramatically. Hearing this, Karina desperately attempts to assist her friend, but their funds are insufficient, so Karina regretfully hands over her mother's ring to Charles. Finally, Charles decides to free Karina's buddy, who is deeply thankful for her assistance. After that, Karina says farewell and returns to the vegetable store to finish her overtime job. Back at the vegetable store, Karina rapidly completes her responsibilities, which include shopping and bagging veggies. Shortly later, she receives a call from her daughter, who has plans to visit her for the holidays. It is discovered that her daughter lives with her ex-husband abroad. At that point, her daughter notes that she will be at the airport around 5 a.m. and hopes Karina will not be late picking her up. Hearing this, Karina swears to arrive at the airport before 5 a.m. A few hours later, while putting out the trash, Karina unintentionally observes a robber engaged in a shootout. Karina gets into her car and drives away from the situation, unwilling to become involved. Not wishing to leave any witnesses, the robber snatches the stolen briefcase and rushes after Karina. The chase results in an accident which sets the robber's car ablaze. Karina gets unconscious though she isn't injured. Shortly after, the robber forcefully got into Karina's car and demanded that she leave the area quickly. Meanwhile, the stolen briefcase was destroyed by flames. During the drive, the robber, Kovac, asked Karina to take him to the pharmacy since he had stomach wound. Under threat, Karina had no choice but to comply with his demands. When Kovac arrived at the pharmacy, he told Karina to buy the meds he required and gave her a communication device so they could stay in touch. Once entering the pharmacy, Karina swiftly purchased the pills as directed by Kovac via the communication device. Meanwhile, Kovac continued to aim a gun at Karina, ensuring that she did not attempt anything risky. At that point, the chemist understood Karina was in danger and tried to assist her. Kovac fired rounds at the pharmacy and demanded that Karina return quickly with the prescription, threatening to kill both Karina and the pharmacist if she did not comply. After returning to the car, Karina inquired as to where they were heading next, to which Kovac responded that they were going to her house to treat his wound. Hearing this, Karina explained that she did not own a home but rented one, and Kovac told her to accompany him there. When Kovac arrived in front of Karina's house, he cautioned her not to flee because he would track her down. Once inside, Kovac requested Karina's assistance in treating his wound. Shortly after, the landlady knocked on her room door, apparently worried by the commotion Kovac was making. Additionally, the landlord discovered bloodstains in front of the door. Karina, not wanting Kovac to harm the landlady, told her that everything was all right. Kovac then begged Karina for some clothes, and thankfully, she had some of her ex-husband's clothes. Kovac then told Karina to turn towards the door while he changed clothes, claiming he was an Interpol agent. Kovac then received a phone call from Silvio, the Mafia boss in Italy. Silvio inquired if Kovac had obtained the needed item, but he replied that he had encountered some difficulties and requested additional time. Meanwhile, Karina overheard their chat over the connection device, causing her to believe Kovac was a corrupt Interpol agent working for the Mafia. In short, Kovac led Karina to another place, where she summoned the confidence to inquire whether Kovac was actually a corrupt Interpol agent. Hearing this, Kovac finally admitted that he and his colleague had once infiltrated Silvio's criminal organization. Unfortunately, their cover was compromised, thus his partner had to be eliminated. Meanwhile, Kovac had escaped from town, but he had a cause to return to Silvio's crew. Following that, Kovac explained that Silvio had told him to steal illicit products from a business rival. Kovac first stole some of the stuff, but they burnt while he was chasing Karina earlier. Shortly later, Kovac and Karina arrived at a spot where he intended to catch more dealers in order to steal the illegal products once more. Kovac then provided Karina money and instructed her to meet with 2 dealers and pretend to purchase a huge amount of illegal products. When Karina met with the dealers, she stated that she wanted to purchase a huge quantity of illegal products and was carrying a suitcase full of cash in her car. Karina also showed them the money Kovac had given her to persuade them to believe her and transport her to the warehouse. However, the 2 dealers grabbed Karina hostage and demanded that she pay over all of the money immediately. Karina calmly stated that she was not the one who wanted the things, but rather her companion in the car. She then explained that her friend would not hesitate to kill them if they did anything funny. Feeling pressured, the 2 dealers ultimately agreed to take Karina to their boss's warehouse, and they told her to wait in the car since a courier would be there shortly. Once back in the car, Karina begged Kovac to let her go since she needed to pick up her daughter at the airport, but he completely ignored her. Soon later, a courier arrived to take them to the warehouse. Karina and Kovac were following the courier when they abruptly lost sight of him. Karina observed the time and realized that her daughter must have already arrived at the airport. Karina secretly distracted Kovac and eventually escaped. Kovac was upset when he realized this, but he happened to find Karina's phone in the car by chance. So he intended to kidnap her daughter at the airport because Karina had learned too much about him. Shortly after, Kovac arrived at the airport first, and he noticed Karina's daughter, who was with a police officer waiting for her mother. He then displayed his Interpol badge to prove that he was an agent. Karina's daughter, knowing something was wrong, attempted to flee. A chase began, and Kovac and the police officer ended up aiming their firearms at each other. Kovac then said that if the police dared to shoot, the child would also die. Finally, the police officer surrendered, and Kovac carried Karina's daughter away. During the ride, Karina's daughter, Lucy, questioned why Kovac had kidnapped her. Lucy then explained that if Kovac wanted money, he had kidnapped the wrong person because her mother did not have much money. The focus then went to Karina, who flagged down a police patrol car. Karina then told the officers that her daughter was at the airport and begged them to escort her there. When the officers noticed Karina in distress, they tried to calm her down and told her to get in the car. At that point, Kovac approached them unexpectedly, and Karina instantly begged the authorities to arrest him, claiming that he was a nasty person. However, Kovac swiftly displayed his badge, assuring the cops that he was an Interpol agent. Shortly after, Karina noticed her daughter was already in Kovac's car, while Kovac put a gun to one of the police officers and asked that they both surrender to avoid casualties. Kovac also told them to hand over their guns. Finally, the 2 police officers obliged with his demands, while Karina was instructed to exchange cars immediately. Karina begged Kovac to take the handcuffs off her daughter's hands after she switched cars, and he thankfully consented. During the way, Kovac received a call from Silvio, who inquired whether he had accomplished the task. He wasn't sure what to say and inquired where Silvio was because he needed to talk to him about something. They arrived at Silvio's house shortly after, and Kovac walked inside right away. Soon later, Silvio's men arrived to take Lucy away. Karina screamed in terror, but there was little she could do, especially with her hands shackled to the driving wheel. The scene changed to a room where Kovac requested Silvio for a little more time, to which Silvio replied that, as a clever Mafia leader, he would give him 1 more hour to steal 5 kilos of illegal items. However, If Kovac fails again, he would suffer serious penalties. When Kovac returned to the car, Karina questioned where her daughter was. Kovac then revealed that Silvio had given him 1 hour to steal the illegal goods again, and if he was late, Lucy would be killed. Karina was furious when she learned that Kovac had included her daughter in his difficulties. It was later revealed that Kovac was following all of Silvio's orders since he had kidnapped Kovac's own child as well. This meant that both Kovac's child and Lucy were in risk, compelling them to cooperate. Karina then remembered something and asked Kovac to free her bonds and return her phone. Karina then called Charles and feigned to want to purchase something from him. Later, Karina met with Charles, when Kovac approached from behind with a gun. Kovac requested a significant quantity of products right away, to which Charles responded that he and his gang were running low on supplies, but he didn't trust him. In the end, Charles was compelled to transport Kovac and Karina to his refuge. The scene moved to Silvio, who was relaxing while keeping an eye on Karina and Kovac's children. Silvio indicated at that point that their lives would be jeopardized within an hour. If their parents did not return with the items he desired, they would be slaughtered. At the same time, Kovac and Karina reached Charles's hideout. When Charles entered, he was unexpectedly shot by one of his own gang members. Following that, a shooting occurred between Charles's gang and Karina and Kovac. After defeating Charles's group, Karina and Kovac noticed a woman named Emily fleeing with a heavy bag, prompting them to pursue her. Shortly after, Karina and Kovac cornered Emily, and Karina tried to reassure her by telling her that they would not harm her as long as she handed over her luggage. After repeated attempts to soothe her, Emily eventually relented and handed over the bag before fleeing. After that, Karina and Kovac returned to the car and continued their drive. Kovac then examined the bag and concluded that it did not contain the illegal things he was seeking. Kovac then stated that they were running out of time and that it was impossible to find the products that Silvio desired. The only way to save their children was to face him. Shortly after, Kovac contacted Silvio and informed him that he had received the goods, prompting Silvio to direct him to a warehouse. Silvio also asked that Kovac eliminate Karina. Sometime afterward, Kovac arrived at the warehouse where Silvio was holding his child captive. As he got out of the car, Kovac informed Silvio's men that the goods, including Karina's body, were in the trunk. When Silvio's men opened the trunk to check, a firefight erupted. During the gunfight, Kovac encouraged Karina not to be concerned because there were only a handful of Silvio's men inside the warehouse. After defeating Silvio's men, Karina and Kovac promptly sought for Silvio. Meanwhile, Silvio attempted to flee while taking Lucy and Kovac's son hostage. Eventually, they had another shootout, and Karina begged Silvio to let the children go so they could escape safely. Silvio, on the other hand, stated that his other men would be there shortly. When Silvio put the captives in a car, Kovac attempted to chase him, but was shot by Silvio. Silvio aimed at Karina, confident in his ability to vanquish her. Meanwhile, Karina realized that her gun was out of ammo. However, Karina managed to stab him and rushed to the car. At that point, the police arrived, resulting in a shootout with Silvio. Silvio was wounded just as he was about to kill Karina, and it came out that the shot was fired by Kovac. In the end, Kovac, Karina, and their children survived the ordeal. The next day, Karina is seen taking her daughter to a motel while carrying a bag given to her by Kovac. When Karina checked the bag, she discovered a considerable quantity of money. 6 months later, the scene portrays Karina, who has achieved success and founded a magnificent restaurant on the Italian coast. All of this was due to the money Kovac had given her. Thanks for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more of these recaps. Until next time, have a nice day.